Heyo, it's Matthew from That's Matthew, and you're watching Disney Channel. Wait, I think I messed up. Can we start over? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to That's Matthew. I am so excited to get petty with Torry from the Ready to Be Petty podcast. Say hi.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. We were just talking before we got started. This is the first fellow podcaster that I have had on the podcast, which is so exciting. And it honestly feels kind of surreal because when I first started this, it was very on the DL, like kind of stupid. Now it's actually become really far. And she had reached out to me a couple weeks ago, actually, and was like, if you're ever looking for a guest, I'm here. I'd love to come on. And now we're here and we're so excited to get to know each other a little bit, talk about the movie. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So before we begin, I'm going to let Torry introduce herself, her show, Ready to Be Petty, the podcast. Talk a little bit about that if you would like.
Yes, thank you. I started Ready to Be Petty almost 2.5 years ago, which is so wild. It's been a roller coaster. And basically, we just talk about current events that are happening in pop culture and celebrity gossip and reality TV. So I cover a range of topics, but it's usually like the Kardashians, The Bachelor, definitely Disney Channel things, just
Yeah.
all of the celebs that you would want to hear about, we talk about.
I love it. I love it. And they're, like you said, the Kardashians, which I usually don't talk too much about the Kardashians on the podcast because it's a Disney Channel podcast, but they had some big news out of the Kardashian family yesterday. By the time this
I
comes out,
know.
this is old news, but that Kanye and Kim are supposedly getting a divorce.
I know. I'm really surprised. I thought that they would stick together even though they've been going through kind of like
I
a
know.
tumultuous time.
And I don't keep up with them usually too, but all of a sudden, like these past couple weeks, it's been such like an interesting roller coaster. I've kind of like dove in.
I love
So
that.
I'm excited to kind of maybe hear what you have to say about the situation eventually, and maybe like an episode or on your Instagram. You've already
Oh,
kind of been covering
for
it,
sure.
so I love it.
Yes, we're definitely going to talk about that.
Yeah, there's just so much going on, and I'm just excited to talk about Disney Channel because it's a fun, lighthearted situation. For reference, anyone that's listening, the day that we're recording this has been a very, very crazy day. January 6th, which is when the Electoral College was going to count their votes, but was very rudely interrupted by a group of protesters. I'm not really going to say much more on that because I don't like to get too political here. But it's been a crazy day, and we were just talking how we kind of had to transition into the Disney Channel spirit. Um, she turned on the soundtrack, I turned on the
Yes.
movie, and now we're here, and we're gonna get going on Cheetah
Yes.
Girls, which is one of my all-time favorite DCOMs. I say that about most of them because most of them are pretty good. There's a couple
Absolutely.
rotten apples here and there. But Cheetah Girls, I first watched this a couple years ago when I was doing like a binge of Disney Channel original movies. Because I was actually not born back when this movie came out, which is crazy, a little controversial. But I watched it, I'd say like 2-3 years ago when I was like first getting into the Disney Channel like thing, and right around when I was about to start my podcast or like in the development stages. And I watched the whole trilogy in like 2 days. It was spring break. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how have I not seen this before? And in my opinion, it's not the best of the trilogy.
Yes, me
I think the
too.
second one is the best, but that might be like
Yes.
controversial. And then the third one, we don't talk about the third one.
Yeah.
But no, truthfully, I'm so excited. It's one of my favorites. And I just love how much we're already agreeing so far here on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised because I was going to say the exact same thing. So I'm so glad that you also agree because I was a
Yeah.
little bit nervous.
No, I did a poll not too long ago, and I'm definitely gonna do a poll when this episode comes out, like which is the best. But I actually got some hate on it, so I sorry. We're both in agreement that this isn't the best, but it's
No.
definitely still pretty good. It's iconic,
Yes.
the music,
Yes.
early 2000s, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about it today.
Totally.
So I guess we can start with my overview. which if you are a recurring listener to the podcast is kind of when I just get into the feel of the movie, which is a 2003 American film, Disney Channel original movie, a DCOM, starring Raven Symone, as well as Adriene. I always butcher this. Bailon. I think it's Bailon. Bailon?
By Adriene Bailon, I think.
Bailon. Okay. I always feel so bad butchering them. I know like they're not listening, but still, I just like it just gets me. Kylie Williams and Sabrina Bryan as the Cheetah Girls, and is actually based off of a book series, which I found when I was doing some research. I did not know was based off of a book series.
Yes, I'm gonna age myself here and probably alienate all of your listeners.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I am 28. I am born in 1992. So this movie coming out in 2003 was literally like
your prime time.
Yes, the peak of my like life. And I read the books too. And so it was just like a match made in heaven. I will say the huge difference between the books and the movie is Aqua has a twin. It's so wild. Wow. They just cut her out.
That's actually really interesting because I know usually when Disney does these book adaptations, usually they're pretty close. But that is actually really interesting. And I'm just like thinking in the movie, like what would that have done to the dynamic of the film? I feel like it would just change everything.
Totally. Yeah. There was a fifth member and they were, I think, identical twins, and like even the hot sauce in the purse. And I know we're going to get into this, but like that was from the book. So they pulled a lot of things like Aqua and her sister moved to New York from the South. They did pull a lot of the same themes, but yeah, that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, wow, that is actually really interesting because I think another one would be like Lemonade Mouth is a book adaptation. I covered that in episode 44, I think. So you guys should really go check that one out after this. But they were pretty close because I actually read the book and it was pretty similar. So that's actually really interesting to kind of see the differentiate. And like you said, that they pulled like a smaller detail from that. So I actually think that's pretty cool. And so this movie is written by Allison Taylor, directed by Oz Scott, with music by John Van. Why do these people have hard last names? Hongrid. I probably butchered that. And one of my favorite fun facts about this movie is that one of the producers is Whitney Houston. I love Whitney Houston. I feel like most people do. Great music. When I was like doing that, I was actually listening to a playlist and her song came on afterwards. So that was like kind of crazy. No, I thought that was so crazy. Along with her as producer, we have Deborah Martin Chase and Jacqueline George. So this came out on August 15th, 2003, which is like 18 years ago, which is crazy. Not for me because I'm only 16. But no, I just think that it's just like the peak. I think this is the golden Disney Channel era. That might be a little controversial, but like the 2000s, early 2000s, 2000 to like 2006, 7, maybe 8 is like, in my opinion, like the best that I've learned on my Disney Channel original movie journey here on the podcast.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that makes a lot of sense because what you're getting with DCOMs is like a little bit of cheesy.
They're supposed to be cheesy. Like it's in the title, Disney Channel original movie.
Like it's just, I don't know. There's just some type of like levity that the 2000s and like just fun playfulness that the 2000s had around movies and music that I feel like we can't capture. And I love that a younger audience like yourself is really like appreciating it. Cause I know that a lot of people, like when Jackal pulls out his like Palm Pilot, I like feel like so many people make fun of that stuff, but it's just so like of the time.
No, I 100% agree with you because especially with Disney Plus, I think it makes it so much easier to access films like this. Because I know there are several other Disney Channel podcasts. I listen to a lot of them. But I feel like I am the youngest Disney Channel podcast. And so I've actually had comments that like they said that they enjoy that because they kind of see like what the younger generation thinks. And I think that's actually kind of cool because like,
Totally.
especially whenever anyone DMs me that they listen to the podcast and tell me anything, it just like makes my day. I'm sure you as well, to just know that the
Yes.
listeners are there. And so that's actually really funny that you bring that up because a lot of people say that is that, oh, it's so great to get like a younger person's perspective, especially on like a
Totally.
movie that came out in 2003 when I was born in 2004. Um, but yeah, so quick plot before we get into the characters. It's basically about a girl group of girls with Galleria, Chanel, Aqua, and Doe. Do we want to call her Doe or by her full name? Do we want to like
I don't know. I feel like I always call her Dorinda, but I think it's kind of cool if we say
yeah,
Doe.
because it sounds like the Do Re Mi Fa So. So it's like kind of like a musical thing, like little Easter egg. Love it.
Yes.
So I guess you can call her Doe because gotta keep things interesting here on the pod. And so they perform at a children's birthday party as the Cheetah Girls. And then basically they try to be part of the talent show as the Cheetah Girls. And things get a little messy. Their friendships gets tested. But eventually, spoiler alert, in the end, they all become closer than I think ever before. And also I thought it was really weird that like the people in this movie are like freshmen and they don't look like freshmen. I can tell you,
I
I'm a
know.
sophomore. The freshmen don't look like that. And I feel like it's a
No.
Disney Channel thing. It's just, you know how they are, like with the
Yeah,
casting wise, obviously. But I just thought it was so
totally.
funny. Like they mentioned that they were freshmen. I was like, what? Um,
I know. And I'm like, with that like wardrobe, like
yeah,
you
no,
don't look
people don't dress like that at school. But
no.
I mean, the times changed, unfortunately, from the Cheetah Girls era. But no, I thought that was kind of funny. And so I guess with that, we can head into the first character who is played by Raven Symone, who is, I think, a Disney Channel icon. She has been in That's So Raven, the Cheetah Girls franchise. She has a new show on Disney Channel, which is the Raven's Home, which is this the reboot, I guess you could call it reboot revival, as well as the Xenon trilogy, which I have yet to cover on the pod, which I can't wait to do that because that was also part of my binge. And I guess I didn't realize how Raven Symone was like literally on everything at the time. She was like the icon.
Yeah.
She was like the Hannah Montana of like this era. This was before Hannah Montana, obviously. But no, she really has honestly done a great job. And she's still on Disney Channel, which is pretty cool. And she also has that one film. I don't know what it's called, like something about college road trip, maybe. It's so weird.
Oh, I do not know that, but I'm a big Raven Simone fan, so maybe I'll
It's
check it
on
out.
Disney Plus. I don't know if you have Disney
Oh,
Plus,
cool.
but I watched it as a kid and I couldn't get into it. I couldn't do it. I think it also has like other people. It has Brenda Song in it, who's another Disney Channel icon.
Oh,
So if you want to check it out,
but it's not a
it's not a
decom.
DCOM. It's like one of those
Hmm,
weird Disney produced movies that they try are basically like a DCOM, but not. And they didn't air it on Disney Channel like at first. It was like probably in theaters, but then they like market it as a DCOM like later on because they start airing it on the channel. Like
right.
16 Wishes, I think. I don't know. There's like so many
Okay.
different other ones that they like aren't DCOMs, but they say are DCOMs. So I guess it's up for debate. But if you guys want to check out that movie with Raven Symone, it was one of her last ones in like her OG Disney days. But Galleria is our main girl here, and she, I don't know. I've been trying to figure out who my favorite is, and maybe by the end I'll have an answer. But Galleria is
Yes.
probably up there. She's one of the two for me. And I don't know if it's just the fact that it's Raven Symone and she's iconic. But I feel like I relate a lot because she always is kind of portrayed as a little bit of like a control freak. Very kind of perfectionist. And that's literally me. When I have, especially on the podcast, editing is a bad thing for me because I always have to like get it down to the nail. because I'm a control freak. And so
Totally.
I really always feel like that. And sometimes she's always wants the best for the group of the girls, the Cheetah Girls. And she's always loyal, but she also like goes out of her way to help them. She's just a loyal friend, and she's a friend to everyone. And I feel like that is maybe why I like her so much, because I relate in that way of like how she portrays herself. And throughout this movie, you get to see a little bit of a different perspective, because they kind of go their separate ways for a while and things are just falling to pieces. And she's just working hard. And then I don't know, I just feel like I relate a lot, as well as she's the reason that they all get back together in the end, because her dog Toto, which I
Yes.
love that the dog's named Toto, and is, spoiler alert, gets like stuck in the sewer streets of Manhattan. It's a huge thing, and then they all come together and sing their iconic sister song, which, spoiler, is probably one of my favorite songs from this movie. But I don't know, I feel like she's the driving force of the plot of this movie and the
Totally.
group in general, and I think that's why I admire it
Totally.
so much.
Yeah, I agree. Like Galleria is so ambitious, especially for someone who's so young, which I really admire. And she seems to have like a lot of like wits, like business sense. Like she's talking to her mom, who also is like kind of an entrepreneur with her like clothing design
They
business.
seem to like be very
And
similar to each other, and like that driving
yes,
force, like
totally. And I feel like they butt heads because they're so similar.
I agree with
And
that statement.
I really I really like her, and I feel like yeah, her intentions are pure, like she wants what's best for everybody, but sometimes the way that she expresses that or the things that she does aren't like I don't know, they just come off as mean or rude or
Mm-hmm.
like maybe just like too ambitious, but I feel like it was a really good message for young girls, like when she's talking about Derek, like we don't need a man to distract us from our goals. And like being the leader of a group is so hard when you're so young, and there's lots of different personalities, and like uh Aqua and should not Aqua and
Mm-hmm.
Doe were new to the group. So there's a lot that she was just trying to manage. So yeah, she's definitely, I would say, the star of the movie. And yeah, we love
No,
Raven.
I 100% agree. And I feel like that's just why I like her so much, because she's the way that this whole movie really, she drives, kind of repeating myself a little bit, which I don't like doing, but she is like, the reason is that the whole group comes together in the end. She's the leader of the group. She's like the Harry Styles of One Direction, a good
Yes,
comparison for any of the younger listeners out there. And that's what I admire. And I also admire her like persistence, similar to her mom, who's also kind of very similar to her. And I feel like that is like what makes their family work. But then, like you said, they also kind of get into some disagreements a little bit because they're so similar. And I feel like that's with any
totally.
friendship. If like your best friend is so much like you, that's a problem, because been there, done that. But and I feel that is why they're such, in the end, they come out so strong after with
Totally.
her and Toto, which, like I said, just love the name. Um,
Me too.
and yeah, I think that's all for Galleria. I also love the name Galleria. I think it's super unique. There's actually like a
Yeah.
furniture store by my house. It's like called Galleria's Furniture Store. And every time I go by, I just think of Raven and the Cheetah Girls.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think that something that I first noticed when I read the books and then watched the movies is the author chose such cool and unique names for all of them, and like even down to the dog Toto. So yeah, I and the mom is Dorothy, right? I
Yeah.
think that so there's that connection. But yeah, I think that they did a really good job of making each character unique, and that like starts with their names.
No, yeah, I agree. And I love everyone's name. I don't think I could pick a favorite, just because they're all unique and not like the boring Matthew. Like,
No, I love it. And I love that so Matthew. It's so
I
clever.
know. Fun fact for anyone who's a newer listener. Originally, the podcast was going to be called And You're Watching Disney Channel because, like they do the wannabe. I thought it'd be cute. But then I was like, I don't want the word Disney Channel on the podcast because I was like, first off, my mom's like, couldn't you get copyrighted? And I was like, probably. So then I decided on That So Matthew because it's That's a Raven and we're talking about Raven right now. And I love it. And also every time you look up That's So Matthew, it comes up with the character Matthew from That's a Raven, who Raven was slightly interested in. But
Nice.
it's iconic. And I think also my friends always, like, if I do something that's like very much like me, that was like, that's so Matthew.
I'm obsessed with
And it's
that.
just become a running meme, and the podcast has just become a running meme, I guess. And I love it. It's unique. Just like our next character, who is Chanel Simmons, who's played by Adriene. I'm not even going to attempt the last name because I forgot already. But she, how do I say this? I love her uniqueness in a way because I feel like she's one of the more unique characters in the show, or not the show, the movie. She's different than the other characters in the way that she kind of goes about her life. Very fashionista. I don't want to say basic girl, but basic. She is all about the fashion, and you see her kind of butt heads a little bit with some of the other girls, like they all do. They all get into like this big fight. And I think in that way, she sets herself apart, but also she also has some problems with herself. She kind of seems a little insecure, in a way. She's like not living up to the other girls, which is something that happens to many people across the globe, is having friends and you're like, oh, I'm not as good as them, or I'm not as talented, I can't sing as well. And I feel like you kind of just see a lot of transparency in her character. Not like she's not actually showing it, but you can kind of just tell by the way she acts and goes about her actions of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I admire that.
Yeah. I really admire her because, again, she's really young, but she is really empathetic. And I loved when she like hugged Doe when they talked about like her foster family and her living without much money. And she, I think, approached Galleria in the movie when they were having like that sleepover and was like, hey, like the other girls aren't liking really how you're behaving right now. And I think that she did that with a lot of like love and respect and like wanting to keep the girl group together. And I thought that showed like a lot of maturity. So I think obviously Chanel and Galleria are like the main characters. And I think that's one of the reasons that we like them so much is their characters are really like fleshed out, whereas we don't know as much about Aqua and Doe, but I really, really like Chanel.
Yeah, no, I agree. And she's also pretty comical in like her facial expressions. If you watch them
Yes.
throughout the movie, like almost all of the girls in this movie, just the way that they show with their face, like every time I was looking for like promotional pictures, like throwing some graphics together because I was bored today. Then I did not become bored because I turned on the news. But all the pictures you see, she just has this really like exaggerated, sarcastic face. Like, I just love it. She's just so unique, and I think is probably almost tied for my favorite with Raven, just because they're both unique
Yeah.
and they're very different from each other, but they're also so similar in a way of like coming together, friendship, and I admire that a lot. And they also work out
Me
their
too.
differences a little bit, which is the great friendship. Yay. But I have to give credit to both of them for that. So up next we have Aqua, whose full name is Aquanette Walker. Aquanette, I have never heard the full name of Aqua, but I love it. It's like we said, it's so unique, it's so different. I feel like that's what makes this movie so different. And Aqua is very, very fun in the way, in my opinion, because she is not, I feel like she doesn't get enough credit. I feel like she's the
Yeah.
forgotten cheetah girl. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Even in the film, I feel like we didn't get to see enough of her. I feel like we saw so much um of the other characters, like Raven's character. I didn't like that we didn't get enough from her. Specifically in this film, I think we get a little bit more from her in the second one, the best one. But this is the one that has the twin, right?
Yes. Yeah. She has a twin. Yeah. And we don't see too much about her backstory or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I love how she is always just like, Derek is so cute. Like, Galleria, you should go for him. And she just seems like the calm, like low key, kind of more chill person
Yeah,
that this band needs because Chanel and Galleria are like a little bit high strung. So it's
just a
kind of
little
nice that
bit.
she is, yeah, just a tad. She's just like so much more relaxed, which I think that they need. But yeah, I want to hear more about her. But yeah, I definitely think she kind of gets overlooked. But they talk about her having like the best voice and Doe bringing
Mm-hmm.
like the dance moves. So she's definitely like a key player. Obviously, they're all really important, but yeah, we don't learn too much more about her. Like, I can't even think about what her
Yeah,
backstory
I don't
was.
think there was a backstory. I just feel like she's very similar to like that character that they just kind of threw in to like balance out the dynamic. And I feel I was kind of like upset about that because Aqua just is like the cool name and like they gave her no cool characteristics to go off of. Yeah,
Exactly.
like I said, I just recall a couple scenes of her like they saying that she's the best sibling, but also I feel like she also has like this weird accent. I feel like it's a southern accent maybe, but I don't remember
Yeah.
that being in the second or third film at all. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a good
Um
point. Yes,
it's
that's such a good point because I think that they allude to it, like with the hot sauce, and then at the very end of the movie, when they're all in their cheetah outfits, at the talent show, I should
mm-hmm.
say. So not the end of the movie, but middle of the movie. She's like in, or maybe it was in the finale.
It's
I
like
can't remember,
in
but
the middle, I think between like the middle and like the end. It's
the end, she's in like a full, like kind of like a big skirt and I think like cowboy boots, but they're like leopards. So they like kind of allude to it, but they don't like outright say it. But they definitely do in the books.
mm-hmm.
Like they are new to their school and they like heard like Chanel and Galleria like heard them singing and like invited them into the Cheetah Girls because they needed like a full girl group. So
Interesting.
we hear more about her and her twin, and her other twin is like her name starts with an A and ends with the net thing. I can't remember what it was, and it's gonna bother me, but it's something like
Oh,
Aquanet.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like I was trying to figure out a character in like a popular movie that like they remind me of because they are like really overlooked. And the only one that came to mind, and this might be a little controversial, is like Karen from the movie Mean Girls. She's just
Oh,
there.
yes. Yes. That is such a good one. Yeah, because we hear about like the toaster strudel background
Mm-hmm.
story and obviously like Regina and Lindsay Lohan and stuff. Like we hear all about that. But yeah, we don't hear anything about Karen. That is such a good
I
comparison.
was trying to think, but like she's not dumb, and like Aqua not is not dumb. I
No.
just kind of felt bad because we didn't get to see enough of her. And she clearly seems like they always allude to her being like the most talented one of like the group, but they don't prove it. Um,
I know. I know.
I was actually really sad about that. But she's just also very fashionable. They all are very fashionable in this movie. They wear some pretty great
Yes.
outfits.
Yes.
So then our final cheetah girl is Doe, whose full name is Dorinda, I think. Dorinda, yeah. Thomas. And the reason we're calling her Doe is because we decided it's like sounds cooler, you know, like a nickname.
Yes.
And she is also probably one of my favorites. And I feel like the reason that I do that is because she actually gets something to go off of. And she is very interesting. She is a blonde. She's like, I don't want to say also basic, but she's very different than the other characters in a way. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of weird because I feel like we got something to work off, but like we didn't. But she is very unique in the way. How do I say that? I don't know. I just feel like I don't know what to say about her, and I feel like because I was focused on the other characters.
Yeah, she obviously has like had a difficult kind of upbringing. Like she talks about being a foster
Yeah, which I
kid
loved
and
that they threw that in. I do have to say.
yeah, and they kind of talked about it and like obviously she had a lot of like shame and lied about where she lived to the other girls
Which is
who
sad.
seem all
It's really sad.
so sad because they all seem pretty well off. Like their apartments were crazy in this movie. So, yeah, she just felt like she couldn't, oops, sorry. She just felt like she couldn't, yeah, tell them about her story because I guess she thought it would change their friendship, but she works at like the dance studio to pay for classes and stuff. So I really like, yeah, that she, yeah, and finally introduces her mom to the Cheetah
Mm-hmm.
Girls. So I really like kind of her full circle
Mm-hmm. I was gonna
storyline.
say it finally came to me what I want to say. She's kind of very closed off from the group. We see all the other girls are very social, very open. I wouldn't say honest, but like just very out there. And with you don't see that with Doe. And I feel like in that sense, it made her unique. Also, the foster thing. I don't really think any other Disney show has really ever or DCOM has ever really hit on that before, at least that I can come to mind of. I'm sure there is something that has at least mentioned it. And I just feel like that's what set it apart. And her character.
Yeah,
And I just love when she finally like told them and they were like pretty accepting. I don't think that there was like any negative reaction. I watched like since I watched the
totally.
full thing, it's been like a couple days. But she just the way that she when she finally opened up and she was like so relieved, I feel like that made it just so heartwarming.
Totally. Yeah, you're right. Because a lot of DCOM movies, usually it's portraying a family that's like really
Or
supportive.
usually the
And
dead mom. It's always the dead mom.
yes, that's such a good point. You're right. It's like, yeah, it's the dad is the main caregiver because the mom passed away in a tragic accident. But
Always.
usually, like, they have like some type of support system. And yeah, this was obviously she was still really supported by her mom, who she, yeah, ends up like meeting the Cheetah Girls and meeting Dorothy. And I'm I'm hoping that we see more of that. I don't remember if she was in Cheetah Girls 2 as much,
Yeah, I don't
but
think so, but I haven't watched that in a while
yeah,
either, so
me neither.
I'll have to do that
But
soon.
yeah, it is really an interesting storyline, and I'm glad that they showed it because it is just showing more of like kind of real life. Yeah, and what people go through.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that's one, just like we said, it makes it so unique. Everyone just comes from different backgrounds, but they all end up having the same goal, which is to win the talent show. Which is very bold. Because in the first one it's just a school talent show, but then the second one they're in that huge competition. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it or watched it. So it's like each movie the stakes got higher and higher until the third movie, which I don't really like.
No, I feel like the third movie should not be canon
I
because
no, I don't count it.
again, right? Because again, spoiler alert, Galleria goes off to college, and I just feel like that's so unrealistic because she's the one that like loves the Cheetah Girls
She's
the
like the
most.
main person. That'd be like I'm gonna use the Harry Styles thing. If Harry Styles would have left One Direction instead of Zayn, which is controversial. My sister's a huge directioner, but they're all like about that. And I feel like without her there, I was like, I don't know. And actually, before you, there was actually someone I want to talk about. Only the third one, not the other ones. They only want to talk about the third one. And I was like, okay. And then eventually we set it up and they ditched me. So I'm actually kind of glad that they did that.
No.
I was really mad. I was pissed. But I was like, oh great, I don't have to talk about this movie. But then like also that like is all the hard work of like preparing for an episode. And I'm sure you know this, that if you have a guest, like I don't want to say it's their obligation, but especially if they wanted to you, like came to you, like she came to me. She's like, oh, the third movie's so great. And I was like, oh yeah, great. But and then she ended up ditching me, and I don't think I've talked to her since. So,
Oh my gosh, that's so
and
funny.
she was a huge
Yeah, it's always a
podcast
bummer
fan
when.
too, which that really got me going.
Oh.
So it's whatever though. No, it's please, if you're listening and you ever want to be on a podcast, please don't ditch and be serious about it.
Yeah, it's so hot. It's so tough to kind of, yeah,
Mhm.
reschedule or figure out what you're gonna
No,
do.
it's a pain, and that's why I'm really glad that I've actually figured out to record in advance, which is a huge thing, people. Like this, you guys, this is like a whole month before you guys will hear this, but it's still a great thing because you have that like security of a couple episodes that you already have done that you don't have to worry about that. So that's my big
Absolutely.
lesson for you folks today before we get into the plot. So I guess we can just start off with the plot. Like we said, Cheetah Girls form a group together. They perform at that children's birthday party, which I feel like they didn't. A group got together at like a birthday party in like another DCOM or show, which I was like, I don't know why that's such a thing. I feel like it's Victorious, which is
Oh,
they have like the
probably.
I don't know what it's called. They just like they did the
It's
vegetable group or whatever, the food. It's a whole thing. I haven't watched Victorious in like years.
yes.
So, but
Yes. Okay, I vaguely remember that.
and so from there, they kind of start like telling their parents they're like this is going to be big. Like all of a sudden, I don't even know if the other girls knew that like specifically Galleria was like really invested in this. From the beginning, you see her like this is going to be like the next big thing. Like pun intended, because I'm pretty sure Disney had a thing called next big thing. But
Yes.
the way that
Yes.
she like I almost don't know if I would appreciate like someone just like kind of going behind my back and like starting to build like this huge empire of a band, and like the other girls have no clue, but that just furthers the idea of Galleria just like being in her own world and like being the driving force of the movie, like we said. And from there they kind of start figuring out like this could be something that could happen, like they could make this work. And then they're like, oh, a talent show, which talent shows are very interesting to me. I've participated in several talent shows over the years at school. I was in a virtual talent show last year due to COVID, which is cool. But like, it's just such a weird thing to me. And talent shows have always just been like, I don't understand it in a way. Like, I think it's cool to like showcase, but to like have a winner. And they were like, clearly they wanted to win. Like, they wanted to go big or go
Yes.
home. And I feel like I said, I've been in a couple talent shows. If you go in with that mentality, I feel like it's kind of toxic. They still just went for it, and I love that. They just had big hopes. They were going to be the next big thing, like we said. They auditioned for this talent show, and they auditioned with this lady. No, not this lady, the guy. And he's like, oh, I want you on my record label. Which, if we have learned anything from Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, record label people are sometimes villains. I feel like this is not the first
Yes.
villain record label guy. I don't know. I can't tell you an example. I just know that it's been done.
Agreed.
And he just his vibes off. You can already tell that he's kind of going to be a little bit of a villain. He doesn't mean to be in a way. I just feel like in the end, he kind of just screws him over a little bit. And he's like, I want you guys. And she's like, yeah, I'm the founder of the Cheetah Girls, which kind of sets them into a little bit of a tizzy, guys. Because, like we said, Galleria was the leader of the group. But the other girls haven't really established that. She's the self-established leader of the group. And the girl that doesn't sit well with them. And I definitely could agree. Like if I'm in anyone that's in a friend group and like all of a sudden one person's like, I'm the leader of this friend group, it kind of sets them kind of like their first little interaction that will eventually lead to them all kind of hating each other for a hot second, and then they'll have their rejoice. But the way that they did that, I just feel like was interesting. And she's kind of setting herself apart. And then Dorothy, she is like, yeah, I don't think this guy's like legit. Like, you shouldn't do this. Like, she was telling them not to do it. Are they going to do it anyways? Probably. And I feel like they're freshmen in high school. They know everything about song people, guys. Song people. What is that? Like record labels.
Yes, yes.
She's like, yeah, I don't think so. But eventually she kind of loosens up a little bit and she's like, I guess you can do this meeting. She's very hesitant. And I actually kind of admire that in the sense she's like looking out for her daughter. She wants it to be best. She doesn't want her to get heartbroken. I feel like any mother or father whose child first starts dating, like, it's kind of that same thing. They don't want them to get hurt. I guess you could say it's like a date with fate. From there, they have a pretty successful meeting, but then there's some concerns that start coming. This is their first record. This would be their first record label. And this guy kind of is gonna eventually show his true colors. But then they also have the talent show. We can't forget about the talent show because the talent show is going to make them the next big thing, not the record label. And that kind of sets a little bit of a feud between the group a little bit. They kind of start arguing is the talent show more important or is this record label? And personally, I would probably pick the record label, even though it's But again, they persevere a little bit in this group. And so now they start figuring out that they need to do something, like they need to pick one or the other. And so they kind of need to talk to Galleria because apparently Galleria is the only one that can make decisions in this group, which I didn't like that in a way because I feel like specifically, like I said, I've kind of like I don't want to say the friend group leader, but like, you kind of have that person that is like the driving force, like we said. And they always like come to you. And I feel like they always came to Galleria and they never could think independently. And personally, that is a thing that kind of gets me going a little bit because everyone's their own person. Specifically in this movie, I felt bad for Galleria because her mom's like telling her to do one thing and her friends are like, let's do another. One friend's telling her to do another thing. And I feel like she couldn't think for herself. Which
totally.
I felt bad for her because I feel like she wanted the best for the group. The other girls wanted the best for the group. Everyone had a different opinion on what the best of the group is. And so it kind of continues to go into this crazy, I don't want to say spiral, but spiral. And now they kind of take a break and do a pretty great scene with Doe at the dance center where she teaches, because she's like a dance instructor, which is super cool. And she's only a freshman in high school. I give her a lot of credit because I definitely would not have had time to teach dance in my freshman year of high school because, homework, even here with the podcast, I mean, balancing homework, school, other stuff, it's kind of crazy. And they're a singer. They're vibing. They're making way for everything. And so then they start figuring out that with this role at the audition center, the dance place, she would not be able to continue as part of the Cheetah Girls, which is, I guess, the first big hit of their friendship. I mean, they kind of have the hits, the arguments with the talent show or record label. But that would mean that they'd have to lose a member. I mean, some groups, that have happened over the years, famous groups, go back to the One Direction. They've lost a member. I think Little Mix just lost someone. I don't really follow them very much. Yeah, but
it's true.
When you lose someone, especially like this is not even like, it's almost like they were losing a friend, even though they could have still been friends. And I honestly don't know whose side I would have been on because she's like, I want money. I want a paid role. Like, she wants the cash. Respectable. But then they also have the record label and the talent show, which could also lead them to make money as well. So the girls are just like, they're in a disagreement. And now they have this meeting with the guy, the record label producer, whatever, Jackson. His name is just Jackal. Like,
yeah, that should have been like the first red flag.
Yeah. It's like when you're like, what's it called? I think there's Jekyll and Hyde. I think that's like the
Yes.
reference that they were going for, and I love it. But this part actually is a little weird, and I feel like it's making fun of certain groups. They're like, we have this new direction that we want you guys to go in, and they want them to like lip sync, which lip syncing is very controversial in the singing thing. Whenever I hear the word lip sync, I just think of like the Mariah Carey performance a couple years ago on the New Year's show. She completely butchered the lip syncing thing, and it can end up being pretty controversial. And they also wanted them to wear creepy like animal masks, which were very ugly. Like, I don't usually like to use that word, but they were just
It was so
ugly and
weird.
weird. And no, and then she like starts having these weird like nightmares about these masks, and like the people in masks are like coming at her gallery. I should specify. It was like really weird. And she finally is like, oh, maybe this isn't the right guy, which I'm glad that it took her long enough to figure it out. But then you kind of start to see their friendship really tested, because now they don't like the record label. And Jackal Jackson, which, like we said, warning sign, that's the red flag, is very basically, they don't know what to do. She refuses the offer. She's devastated. Like, this broke her dream. Like, she was the reason in the first place that this record label was even happening. Well, I sounded so Midwestern at that point in my accent. Wow. No, sorry.
I love it.
And now they really are sad. And now Chanel also kind of had a little thing going on. She goes on this huge fashion shopping spree, which I feel like is such an early 2000s Disney Channel thing, to like go on a huge shopping spree in like every movie.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of one there. I just covered one not too long ago. Oh, Twitches, like they start off with a huge big shopping spree. It's like the thing, and like the usual, the card gets declined, which is actually very scary. I've actually watched that happen at a store once. It's not fun, guys. It's scary.
No.
And so now she feels bad, and now she's so grateful to have her mother. But then we have Doe, who is the foster child. And they also, I don't know if at this point she had officially come out and said, like, I'm a foster child, like, this is my mom, like around there. And she starts to like realize their differences and how lucky she is to have this mom, because they kind of get into a fight. And I feel like every teen at some point, they're like, I hate my parents, which is a bold statement to make. And I feel like we've seen this in so many DCOMs and other shows. Like, the kids are like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. But she realized how grateful she is to have the opportunity to have someone in her life to act as the mother figure. And I guess she doesn't really even know that Doe is the foster child, and she doesn't really have that stability and that mother figure at all times. And I just thought that was kind of like a strong moment. I feel like that's the most serious moment of this movie.
Yeah,
and
definitely a highlight.
It's a highlight, and it just stands out when you think about the movie, because like we said, I don't think Disney Channel had ever done anything like that. Even though it wasn't like a huge part of the movie, they still included it, and it's something that you remember. And I feel like I will always remember that about this movie in the coming weeks, months, years, whatever. And so now they start to make up Chanel and her mother, and like they have a nice bonding moment. But the biggest bonding moment is yet to come, people, because they're all kind of have gone their own separate ways. I think some of them are still talking, but they're having a moment, and it's like when the big friend group has split. And I know that it's sad, and I definitely know the feeling. But then we have Toto, who comes to save the day. He was the underdog of the movie, pun intended. Haha. And it was so random. When I was first watching the movie back 2-3 years ago, I was like, what is gonna happen? Like, this movie is gonna be over in like 20 minutes, and they're in despair. Like, there's not, how are they gonna wrap this up? In comes Toto. It still doesn't make 100% sense to me yet, the way that they put this together in the end. And I feel like that's why the second movie is so much better. But he falls into a hole in the streets of Manhattan, which is sad, scary, poor Toto. And it just becomes the talk of the town. There's a live news story, and then now all the Cheetah Girls hear about this huge event, and they all want to go help Galleria because that's their friend. They want to be there for her. Because I just so weird to me. I can't like this ending part. It's like cute, but like cringy.
I know. So cringe.
And so now they all come together and they finally kind of start to have their bonding moment, but they start singing to calm Toto down to make him come out. It's so cringy. It's Disney Channel. It's so Disney Channel.
Yeah. I forgot that this was the way that the movie ended.
So did I. Even though like I remember, then after like I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, when I first watched that, I was like, what is happening? It's
so anticlimactic.
Yeah, I was like expecting a lot more, and I was feeling like maybe they would have something where they'd be like, oh yeah, like, oh, we still love each other, but like it's so weird.
It is really
and
weird.
So now they have calmed him down with their singing, and then they bond and fix their friendship by singing together to calm down Toto. Cute, cringe, all the feels. And now they start singing a new song, which I believe is the most iconic song, the Cheetah Girls song, Sister. We Are Sisters, We Stand Together, which it's the Cheetah Girls iconic song. But then and then at the end, it kind of leads to Jackal Jackson. He is like, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. I want you back. Which he should have known that he shouldn't have messed with the Cheetah Girls. I'm pretty sure they even say that line or something like, you shouldn't mess with the Cheetah Girls.
Totally.
And now in the end, they actually do the talent show. They win, and now they are back together, besties, ready to take on the world as the Cheetah Girls. And that's the end, really. It's kind of anticlimactic, as we said.
Yes.
I wanted something more. They didn't really give us too much to go off of, and it also felt super short. I don't know if it was just me, but like when I first watched, I thought it was so long, and then I was like, oh my gosh, there's only 20 minutes left. But I thought it was actually really enjoyable. Like we said, it's not the best, but it's definitely something to go off of and is one of the most iconic Disney Channel original films.
Totally.
And so now, before we get into our final ratings, we can talk about our favorite song. So I've been thinking about this, and I think I have picked out a song, and that would be the song Cheetah Sisters, which is the finale. It's just iconic. They're in the middle of Manhattan. They're strutting their stuff. And I think I just love it. And I feel like it's their bonding song.
Yeah, I love that song too. It's probably the one that I think of the most when I think of the Cheetah Girls.
Yeah, because I feel like they make a rendition or remix every single film of the movie.
Yeah, there is like a version, and it really sums up the movie's message that is like, we can all be different, but it makes us unique, and that's why we love each other, and we don't have to be the same to be friends. So it obviously sums up like the whole message of the movie really well. And I just love like the Manhattan street like scene and stuff. Like that's really fun.
Like walking down the street, like everyone's just watching them like in the middle of the street.
Yeah, with like the ambulance or like the emergency services.
And it also has like the iconic, like they're all wearing their signature color, like the pink, the blue, the orange. Yeah. And I feel like they use that on like every promotional thing in the entire world.
Totally. Yeah, that they just happen to be wearing, all of their colors.
They're wearing like vests and stuff, but they're giving the performance of their life. They are about to win the talent show, they're ready to take on the world. So yes. Cheetah Sisters is my song, I think.
Yes. I was gonna choose Cheetah Sisters, but I actually chose
That
Cinderella.
was going to be my next, that was going to be my second one. It was going to be Cinderella or Cheetah Girl or Cheetah Sisters.
I love it. I had a really hard time choosing, but Cinderella, I think, is also just a really good like standalone song. Like if you didn't know any of the backstory, it's just still a really good song. And I just love, again, the message of like girl power. And I love when they're performing that they make it like even the movie like shot is like a music video. It's really cool.
100% agree with you. Those are going to be my two. So we really were on the same page for most of the movie, and I love it. And
Honestly.
now I have to rate the movie. And so this movie, like I said, it's not my favorite of the franchise. There's only two, remember. The third one doesn't count. It's not, I don't include it
Yes.
specifically. And so I thought long and hard about this, honestly, because I'm an overthinker. And I don't think I've ever really given anything a perfect 10 out of 10 before on the podcast because I'm pretty picky with my movies. And so I was thinking I would probably give this like maybe a 6.5 out of 10.
You are picky.
I would say the best I've ever given anything was like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
fair.
think, spoiler alert, whenever I do cover the second one, I'd probably give that one like an 8.5. It's just so much better,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think the songs are better. The plot is better. It's very much more climactic compared to this movie. I feel like there's just the stakes are higher. I definitely am picky, and you're not the first person on the podcast to say that.
That's so funny. I gave it an 8 out of 10. And I think I took the 2 points away because definitely you're right about the movie like length. It was so short and it was kind of like the ending was like disproportionate to like the rest of the
Yeah,
movie.
they
And I wish
rushed
that
through
they
it so much. Like the whole movie
so
felt really
much.
drawn out in some parts, and then by the time you got to the end, it was like the snap of a finger and it was done.
Totally. So I didn't like that. Like I thought they could have just done like another 20 minutes or cut some other scenes and just made it way better. But I really like the music and I like the New York um like setting. Like that's really cool to me. And obviously all of the fashion is just so classic 2000s. But the other things I didn't like and why I gave it an 8 is there's some things that are still missing. Like only Galleria has a love interest, which is like a weird B plot.
It was just I felt it was very I don't want to say like not cohesive, like it didn't flow together, but it didn't flow together. It just felt like it was very choppy, and I feel like I don't know, I've never read the books before, but I felt like maybe they were taking stuff from multiple books and like cramming
Right.
it, like interweaving it, and it just didn't work. That's what I'm assuming because it just felt very like not put together. It just felt there was different plots going on, and then there was like some inconsistencies and like some stuff that got looked over
Yes.
and characters like Aqua. I just
Yes.
felt really
Yes.
I really agree with you on that. It just felt really
It felt rushed and yeah, some of the storylines just weren't complete. And then I think the other major bone I have to pick with it, and then otherwise I think it's like a solid movie, is it kind of bothers me. And I think a lot of DCOMs do this, but like where the kids or like the teens or whatever just kind of like get to run the show because like of course when they're freshmen. I'm Canadian, so I say grade 8 for freshmen. I don't even know what age that is because I'm so old, like 13,
I so a
14.
freshman in high school would be like 14 years old. I was 14 when I was a freshman.
Okay, so like a 14-year-old, of course, you're not going to send four 14-year-olds to a music producer like meeting. Like, of course, the mom's going to be
I
there.
agree. It's weird. And also I love the fact that you said you're Canadian because you're my first Canadian podcast guest. You have shattered
Yes.
many records here on the podcast, and I love
Yeah.
it.
Good. I'm
And
glad.
so no, I agree with you. And it's every Disney Channel original movie. The kids are like, they're so independent. And I mean, I'm also very
Yeah.
independent. But they're so independent, and I just didn't like, I really agree with you. It just felt like they're always in control, and like that would never happen in real life.
In real life, like when Chanel went on the shopping spree and just took her mom's credit card, I'm
Yeah.
like, no one's gonna let a 14-year-old use a credit card without
And she
asking.
also
Like,
like had a lot too. Like she was not buying cheap
mm-hmm.
stuff. Like
Yes.
I agree with you on
Yes.
that. And I 100% agree with almost everything you've said. So
Good. Good. But it was still a solid movie. Like I still would give it like a really high rating because I think that it is, yeah, again, it's like a classic DCOM movie. I was so surprised when you sent me your list of movies that no one had
no.
picked this one
Yeah.
yet.
Well, spoiler, most of the podcast guests are people that are my age, my friends. And so they've had a couple people that have like gone back that far, but I'm actually slowly making my way through there. And I'm like, to my friends, I'm like, you guys are missing on some pretty good DCOMs. Like, yeah. So when
Yes.
you offered to do it, I was like, yes, yes, yes.
Perfect.
And then so the classic That's a Matthew question. If this movie came out in 2021, because it's officially 2021, which is kind of crazy, what would do we think it would do as well? Would it be the same? And honestly, I think it would actually really change the dynamic of the film. Just because of the fact it's so early 2000s. It screams early 2000s, the outfits, the songs, the movie. The way that the movie is just written and filmed, like camera angles and stuff, just very seems super early 2000s. And I feel like Disney Channel, they've kind of really strayed away from their original DCOMs. And I've not been secret about the fact that I really don't like the new Disney Channel original movies. I've sat myself down for a couple of them and I just don't like them. And I feel like that would just change the dynamic. And I really am kind of hoping that they don't like reboot this or remake it because I could see it happening. And I would be very strongly opposed to that because I think they're already remaking one of the Under Wraps, which is one of the OG DCOMs.
Yeah.
And I could see them trying to reboot it. And I just don't want that to happen because I feel like it just needs to be left alone. It's iconic. And I feel like if they were to reboot it and if it were to come out in today's age, I don't even think it probably would come out in today's age, honestly. So, but I feel like that's one of the most interesting answers to my classic question that I've asked is just the fact that I think it'd just be completely different or not happen.
Yeah. That's a really good point because nowadays is that even the way that people get famous,
Yeah, I
like
don't even
I feel
know.
like, right? Like I feel like it would be like go on TikTok or you were discovered on YouTube or something, not that you're like
Yeah,
performing in the
D'Amelios, like
street.
just look at the D'Amelios.
Exactly. So it doesn't, you're right, the plot would have to drastically change, I think, if it was set nowadays. Um, there's just something about it that's just so 2000s, and maybe that is like the need and the want to be famous and having to work so hard for it when they didn't have social media,
Mhm.
because like this is pre-Facebook,
I know,
even
that's kind of crazy.
pre-Twitter, pre-Instagram, like all of those things. So the way to get noticed was like to perform out in public and hustle for those meetings and stuff.
Hmm.
So it wouldn't make sense. But I do like that it's a diverse
Oh,
cast,
I
like the
love
girl
that
group.
because Disney Channel in the early 2000s kind of controversial. I don't feel was diverse enough, and I feel like this was kind of like the start of their diverse era because this was like the year before That's a Raven started, if not the year That's a Raven started around there. And I feel like from there they kind of really fixed that, and I love that.
Totally, totally. So I think that that's important. But yeah, I wouldn't want them to remake it either because even just the girl group music is so from that time. Like it's very Spice Girls, very Destiny's
Yeah, we
Child.
don't
Like
see that very much too often. I mean, like they broke up. I think they did Fifth Harmony. That was a while ago. But
yeah,
Fifth
Fifth
Harmony, Little
Harmony.
Mix.
Yeah, it's just not the same, I feel like the success of girl groups was just so strong there. So like during that time. So I don't think it would work necessarily in this day and
Yeah.
age.
No, I agree with you on that one. I feel like if they did, they'd probably like make it about like going famous on like a social media platform like the D'Amelios, which I've talked about on the podcast. I've expressed my dislike towards them in that sense. I don't know. I think you actually have a podcast episode about them. I'm pretty sure when I was looking through it, I'll have to give it a listen because I've always kind of just laughed about the hype house and the sway house on the podcast because I don't know.
Yeah, it seems just like a different era of celebrity that you can become so famous so quick, like Charlie did with like 100
Yeah, she
million
just hit 100
TikTok
million. Like that's a
followers
lot. I feel like I believe she
in
has the
like a
most. I
year.
believe she has the most followers. And
Totally.
I can't think of any creator that is even kind of close to that. So, yeah. So on that note, I'm pretty sure that will be like the end of this podcast episode. So I want to thank you, Torry, so much for coming on the podcast. I had a great time talking about this movie, and you guys need to listen to her podcast, Ready to Be Petty. I believe it's everywhere wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow her on Instagram. That'll be linked below. And I believe that's RTBP podcast. Okay.
Yes.
I was really hoping that I wouldn't mess it up.
I used to mess it up all the time. Now it rolls off the tongue, but there's many times where I could not say that straight.
No, it's a great, and you can listen to her podcast. And that one episode we were talking about the D'Amelios, listen to it, whatever. The Bachelor, I think she just talked about. Which I never follow, but I was like, I think I should try to follow the season. So maybe
this would be a good one.
Yeah, so I think I might have to like catch up on the abc.com app or whatever. I don't know. But check her out. Check out her podcast. It's a great podcast. I was listening to a couple episodes in preparation for today's episode. And you guys can follow me on Instagram at That's So Matthew, Twitter at That's So Matthew 1. Because I didn't mean to pick That's So Matthew 1, but I picked it on accident, and so now I'm kind of stuck with it. And Facebook.com, if you guys are on Facebook, Facebook.com/That's So Matthew. YouTube, I upload my episodes to YouTube, except for I'm super behind on them because it's a lot of work. So eventually I'll finally catch up on them. But you guys can subscribe there on my website, that'smatthew.com, if you guys want to check that out. I'm constantly updating that because I'm very indecisive. And I think that's also you can buy my merch there if you guys are interested. So once again, thank you so much, Torry. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whenever you're listening to this, because podcasts are for whenever, wherever. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.